yesterday I went to see Roger Hayes in Liverpool prison. He's been wrongfully held, unlawfully held, under European rights, human rights, common law rights, and even the Statute Acts of Parliament have been broken. But I appealed yesterday via the Queen's Bench Court in Liverpool, submitted a habeas corpus, which was accepted at the Liverpool Court and then brought to here to the Manchester Civil Justice Centre, which looks like a big box of Jenga, and basically I had to apply to the court this morning here for the hearing to be heard. So I did that at 10 o'clock, 20 past 10, got the hearing listed for 11, went in and got railroaded really. It didn't matter what I said, I think, it didn't matter what order I said it or how I said it, the judge had already pre-made his decision. I think we all realise that, and I think that the fact that the cops or the police or the peace officers or the policy enforcers, whatever you want to call them, they were stood outside the court ready for us to kick off, and I think that says it all really, that they'd already phoned the police because the judge had already made his decision.
Hand in hand with G4S.
Exactly, and G4S being the Israeli-controlled company and all that stuff. But the key thing is that the judge pointed out that Roger has not appealed or set aside any of the liability orders that have been issued by Wirral Council. And so, because he's not gone through that process, the judge is obviously looking at the orders that have been made and not looking at them like we are, that they're void and due process hasn't been followed and Roger didn't consent and they're all the legal fiction. Just completely ignored all that. As far as he's concerned, those orders are enforceable and there's several of them. Roger hasn't put any evidence forward to appeal or set them aside, so therefore the committal hearing was fine, even though Roger wasn't invited and it was an ex parte hearing and unlawful, and so the warrant was issued unlawfully and didn't follow due process. But as far as the judge is concerned, all that was fine. And I think that really highlights the fact that if the judge had ruled on Roger's favour today and let him go, like he should have done, like I'm sure that any of us sat in that judge's chair would have done instantly, that he's done that because he knows that council tax would fall apart because it's unenforceable and therefore nobody can be jailed for not paying council tax. And obviously he didn't want to do that and let Roger go, because if that gets out in the national media, then nobody's going to pay their council tax. And so I'm going to go home now and appeal and set aside my liability orders, because I've got my own bankruptcy hearing on the 17th in Plymouth, which you're all welcome to attend. And you're all welcome to stay in my house, because I've got repossession order for that, but that's another story. So the fact is that the judge has sided with the Crown, with the state, because he had no choice but to, because if he didn't, he would have opened the floodgates for everybody to say, well, I'm not paying. If you can't get in jail for not paying council tax, I'm not going to pay. And obviously, as far as this court is concerned, Roger can be jailed for not paying his council tax, but then, like I said, Roger needs to maybe go back and appeal against these liability orders. I think, in terms of next steps, which I think is important, I'm going away on Friday tomorrow night to become a diplomat, which is quite crazy but true. And I hope Roger should come with me, but he can't. John Hurst is going to continue the fight, and maybe Ian Puddock down in London, and I think we should try and appeal against this order if we can. So I'm going to go up to the administration offices on floor 11 and see if I can appeal against the order before I leave. And I'm also going to see if Ian Puddock can put in a habeas corpus in the High Court in London, because as far as I understand things, the High Court in London is the real and the only High Court of this land, and it's the only real Queen's Bench court. So therefore, that's got to be worth a shot. But if we don't do it quickly, Roger's going to be out on the 23rd, which is obviously 21 days from when he's been. How is Roger? Well, I saw him yesterday. He's on a hunger strike, which I think we need to get out in the media ASAP. He's not shaved. He's not washed. And he didn't have a towel yesterday or a pillow. So when I came out of the visitation, I phoned the warden. A really nice chap, must be said, for Steve Bean, for allowing me in to see Roger, because he didn't have to at short notice, and allow Roger to write affidavits and habeas corpus and statements, and be able to give those statements to me, and me swap paperwork with Roger was a big thing yesterday, which was great. But he's sound, you know what I mean? His frame of mind and all that stuff, he's in good fettle and in good form. He's getting a lot of support from the other inmates, because they know that he's a civilian prisoner, and not a criminal prisoner. Now, I don't know if you know this, but civilian prisoners cannot appeal against the length of time they have to serve. They have to serve the full sentence. But if you're a criminal, and then you get good time off for good behaviour, and you can appeal against the length of sentencing, and it's nuts.
Can I interrupt you? That's fascinating, isn't it? Because if he's a civil prisoner, then aren't we back to contract again?
Well, exactly.
So where's the contract?
And where's the contract? And as the judge pointed out, there is no contract obligation.
So where's the warrant on oath?
Exactly.
Where's it signed?
So if there was a contractual obligation, the European Court ruling, the Protocol 4, Article 1, nobody can be imprisoned for not paying a contractual debt would apply. But because there's no contract for council tax, you can be jailed. I mean, it's nuts.
So why do we have to pay it then if there's no contract?
Well, exactly, which is obviously, Roger pointed out in his affidavit and his sworn writ that there was no contract and that he is the human being and not the legal fiction his title, his name. But obviously the judge isn't going to pay any attention to that.
No, blatantly, obviously.
No, blatantly, obviously.
Because he sold his soul for 30 pieces of silver.
There we go, Absolutely, I agree with you.
Or with inflation, it might be 130. I really know.
So I think the thing is the fight continues, and we can't just give up. Even if we get Roger out at 12 hours early, it will still be a success,
Yes.
So he's not full. We want to try and keep the fight up.
Because we have to show them in there that we are sovereign,
exactly,
not them.
Exactly.
Yeah? And they're obviously scared of us, though.
They are.
They're so scared.
Which I think we'll all agree, the fact that we came out and those police officers there said everything, didn't it, really?
Yeah.
The decision was already made before we walked in.
Yeah.
So we were railroad.
And
it
they
didn't matter.
expected us to be little hooligans and kick off
Exactly.
and kick everybody's head in.
Yeah, and I felt like jumping over the bench and arresting the judge, but I'm going to
punching him.
Well, I'm going to forfeit to become a diplomat. So when I get back next week, they can't touch me. Yeah, that's what Roger should be doing. The moment he gets out, he's got to go to forfeit, and I'll appoint him as Justice Minister for forfeit. And then he's a diplomat.
I like it.
And that's what
Roger Hayes is an innocent man, and he's locked up because we've got criminals working as judges. That's the problem. That's the crux of the problem. And a lot of them are linked with paedophiles. A lot of high-ranking police officers the same. That's why they won't investigate these crimes, and that's why we're not getting any justice.
Right, okay, my take on it. Basically, the judges railroad it. They just railroaded. They didn't listen to the facts. They didn't listen to... it was interesting. There were loads of contradictions. He just skipped over whatever he wanted to skip over. He interpreted it the way that he wanted to interpret it, which I guess is what they do in there. But it was interesting that he said there was no contractual obligation. So therefore, if it was a civil case, civil meaning there should be a contract. If it's criminal, then there should be a warrant signed by a judge on oath. So one way or another, there's either a contract or there's a warrant on oath. The judge said, there's no contractual obligation, so therefore he must be writing off the fact that it's civil. So it's obviously not civil, so it must be criminal. But if it's criminal, there must have been some harm, loss or fraud committed, which is interesting. Well, there hasn't been that, but even if you argued that there was, then they would have to pursue that on oath. So a judge would have had to have signed a warrant on oath. There's no such warrant, there's no such signing, and there's no contract. And he wasn't interested in listening to that because they're criminal. And that's the end of it. As far as I'm concerned, they as good as pretty much kicked off, or it was certainly a catalyst for the British Revolution.